Dawn breaks over Madrid, but on the outskirts of the capital, in the labyrinth of asphalt and dirt of the Cañada Real Galeana, the night never truly ends. Here in the heart of Europe's largest illegal settlement, a decades-long war is being waged. And today, law enforcement forces are preparing to deliver what they believe will be the final blow. This is Operation Kaiser. More than 100 national police officers, including special intervention units, are mobilizing for a single objective, a bunker. But this is no ordinary structure. It's a modern fortress, the nerve center of a drug empire, defended by 7 armored doors. The target has a name, Ricardo H., alias El Bola. At 38, he is the leader of the 3rd generation of a criminal dynasty that has dominated drug trafficking in Madrid for decades, the Los Gordos clan. Unlike its predecessors, El Bola has learned from the past. He doesn't live in the filth of his business. He resides in a luxury villa in Rivas Vacia, Madrid, at a safe distance, managing his enterprise with the coldness of a CEO. His capture, the dismantling of his fortress, is presented to the public as the definitive end of a saga, the closing of a dark chapter in Spain's criminal history. But is it really an end? Or is it simply the last act of a play that is condemned to be repeated? This is not the chronicle of a clan's fall. It is the investigation of a cycle, a story that forces us to ask, how could one family, the Hernandez motos, build and maintain a criminal fiefdom at the gates of one of Europe's most important capitals? And why, every time one of its heads is cut off, does another, younger and more sophisticated, grow in its place? To understand the incredible end of the Los Gordos clan, we must first understand that their name, the Fat Ones, did not refer to their physique, but to a brutal economic truth, the high volume of drugs they sold. They were an industry, and to unravel their story, we must travel to their origin, to the place that was both their cradle and their castle, a kingdom forgotten by the state, a lawless territory that became the perfect ecosystem for crime, the Cañada Real. The central question of this documentary is not how the Los Gordos clan fell, but why its end is, in reality, a metamorphosis. We will demonstrate that as long as the conditions of marginality that created them exist, their end will always be the prologue to the next generation. To comprehend the rise of Los Gordos, it is essential to understand the geography of their power. The Cañada Real Galeana was not born a ghetto. Its origins date back to the Middle Ages as one of the great livestock trails of the peninsula, a corridor 75 meters wide and 400 kilometers long intended for the transhumance of livestock. A public domain, a vital artery of the rural world. But with the industrialization and rural exodus of the 1950s and 60s, its purpose vanished. Families from all over Spain, seeking a future in the capital, began to build illegal homes on this forgotten land. What began as a handful of precarious constructions grew exponentially into a linear city of 15 kilometers, the largest irregular settlement in Europe, with a population that would exceed 8,000 inhabitants by 2012. The fundamental problem of the Cañada was its legal limbo. Being non-developable and protected land, administrations were paralyzed for decades. They could not legalize the homes, nor could they rehouse thousands of people. The result was a de facto abdication of state sovereignty. There was no sewage system, no regular garbage collection, no public lighting, no transportation. Water and electricity were obtained through illegal connections, a perfect metaphor for the inhabitants' relationship with the system, precariously connected, always outside the law. This institutional neglect not only created undignified living conditions, it created a power vacuum. In a place where the police barely entered and social services struggled to reach, the rules of the state of law became blurred. The Cañada Real became an anomalous geopolitical space, a permanent state of exception at the gates of Madrid. It was in this breeding ground, in this no man's land, that organized crime not only found a refuge but also fertile ground to take root and build its own order. While the Cañada Real grew in oblivion, a silent plague was devastating the working-class neighborhoods of Madrid. The 1980s brought a heroin epidemic that destroyed an entire generation. The testimony of Manoli, a mother from that era, summarizes the tragedy of thousands of families. "My daughter didn't go looking for the drug found her. Her daughter started using at 17, stealing from home, and ended up sentenced to 14 years in prison, where she died of tuberculosis." Manoli is categorical about those responsible. "How can I forgive them? They are to blame for my daughter's death and the death of 2 more generations." This unprecedented social crisis generated a massive, constant, and desperate demand for drugs. Thousands of addicts sought their daily fix, creating a black market of astronomical profitability. This market needed a distribution center, a safe, discreet, and accessible place where supply and demand could meet far from the eyes of the police. The Cañada Real, with its isolation and lack of state control, was the perfect enclave. The narco economy was not the cause of the Cañada's marginality, but a consequence that cemented it, creating a lethal symbiosis. The neighborhoods of Madrid needed a place to buy the drug that was consuming them, and the inhabitants of the Cañada needed the money from that drug to survive in abandonment. In this context of territorial anomia and massive demand, a family emerged, the Hernandez motos. At the head, the patriarchs Juan José H.R. and Adela M.G., who saw in drug trafficking not only an opportunity, but perhaps the only way out in an environment with no alternatives. As a repentant member of the clan would confess years later, "Since I was a child, I've known that world, and it was my way of life. I knew no other." This sentence is key. They did not see themselves as criminals breaking a social contract, but as workers in the only prosperous industry available to them. Their organizational model was not that of a corporate cartel, but something much older and more resilient, the Gitano family clan. This structure gave them decisive advantages. Loyalty was not bought, it was inherited. Secrecy was absolute, protected by blood ties. The line of succession was clear and natural, passing from parents to children. Operations were divided among direct family members and trusted individuals, a closed circle almost impossible to infiltrate. They did not build a company, they solidified a house. And it was this internal cohesion, this fusion of business and family, that allowed them not only to prosper, but to endure through generations, becoming the first and most powerful drug trafficking dynasty in Madrid. The rise of the Los Gordos clan can be read in the steel and concrete of their sales points. What began as simple shacks evolved into impregnable fortresses, a direct challenge to the authority of the state. This transformation was not accidental. It was an architectural arms race. Every advance in police tactics was countered with a new layer of defense. The first police operations encountered armored doors and windows, reinforced with enormous bolts and iron bars as buttresses. But the clan learned from each raid. The structure became more sophisticated. They created a lock system, a series of consecutive armored doors, each guarded by a clan member who would only open it after receiving the green light from the previous one. The objective was not to prevent the police from entering, but to control them, to slow them down, to gain precious minutes. Those minutes were vital to activate their evidence destruction protocols. Inside the bunkers, they had stoves always lit or containers with acid, ready to make the drugs disappear at the slightest sign of alarm. The architecture was not just defensive, it was a strategic tool to ensure impunity. Outside a network of lookouts, known as aguadores, constantly patrolled the perimeter, alerting of any police presence. The bunker was not just a building, it was the center of a militarized territory, a physical declaration of sovereignty. With each layer of steel, the clan not only protected itself, it was telling the state, here in this piece of the Canada, we make the law. The final evolution of this architecture would come with the third generation and their bunkers, with up to 7 armored doors, the culmination of decades of learning in the art of war against the police. The true criminal genius of Los Gordos did not lie in violence, but in the innovation of their business model. They transformed chaotic retail drug dealing into a highly efficient logistical operation, creating what the security forces and the press themselves dubbed the authentic drug supermarket. Their main competitive advantage was reliability. The point of sale was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Customers knew that, at any hour, they would find what they were looking for. This generated a market loyalty that suffocated the competition. They rationalized retail sales, centralizing them in their fortress. The internal organization mimicked that of a legal company. They had established work shifts for their employees, days off, and a clear hierarchy. The police found notebooks with accounting records, a meticulous log of sales, and the shifts of each worker. The structure of the third generation, led by El Bola, became even more professionalized, with 3 defined levels: the leader at the top, highly trusted managers in the middle, and the lookouts at the base, often paid with drug doses, a form of commission in kind. They also developed astute financial risk management. They knew that accumulating large amounts of cash made them vulnerable in case of a raid. Therefore, they implemented a constant collection system. The same person who brought the drugs took away the money collected, ensuring that there was never an excessive amount that could be seized and imputed. They didn't just sell a product, they created a brand and a destination. By centralizing the operation in a secure bunker, they offered their customers a sense of protection they couldn't find on the street. The Los Gordos clan applied business management principles to an illicit activity, and in doing so, they scaled their operation to an industrial level that Madrid had never seen before. October 2011. After months of investigation, the national police launched a large-scale operation against the heart of the Los Gordos empire in Valdemingomes. The objective is to decapitate the clan, to arrest its founders. The scene is chaotic. Intervention unit agents break down the first armored door of the fortress. Inside, the clan's alert system works perfectly. While the police struggle to break through the successive steel barriers, a frantic activity to destroy all possible evidence unfolds inside. When the agents finally burst into the main room, they are met with an image that defines the scale of the business. 45 people are crowded inside, some consuming in the smoking den in the courtyard, others waiting in line to buy their dose. Despite the speed of the assault, much of the drugs have already been thrown into the lit stoves, turning into smoke and ashes. The operation is, nevertheless, a resounding success. 20 people are arrested, including the patriarchs Juan Jose H.R. and Adela M.G. The drug supermarket has been shut down. For the police and the government delegate, it is a decisive blow against drug trafficking in the Canada Real. However, what seemed like a mortal blow would soon prove to be a mere pruning. The clan's family structure, their blood ties, and their knowledge of the business remained intact, ready to be reactivated. By arresting the old guard, the police, without knowing it, had accelerated the rise of the next generation to the throne. The trial held in 2013 was not just a legal process, it was a clash of civilizations. In the dock sat 21 members of the clan, facing sentences of up to 22 years in prison. For the first time in history, an organization of this type was accused in Spain of the crime of organized crime, a judicial milestone that recognized the sophistication of their structure. The clan's attitude during the trial revealed their profound disconnection from the system they were facing. The patriarch Juan Jose's defense was an active theater of the absurd. When asked about the origin of the seized money and jewelry, he declared with complete seriousness that he had won the lottery in 2003. This defense was not a credible alibi. It was a farce, a gesture of contempt towards the court that symbolized the clan's belief in its own law, in a parallel moral universe where they did not have to answer to anyone. Their lawyer even tried to redefine their activity, arguing that they were not a criminal gang, but simply a family clan. The court was not impressed. In November 2013, the sentences came down. 20 members of the clan were convicted. The patriarchs, Juan Jose and Adela, received 19 years and 1 month in prison each. Their son and designated heir, HM, who had taken control of the organization after his parents' arrest, was sentenced to 10 years and 6 months. Justice had spoken, but in the Cañada Real, the business did not stop. The throne was not left empty, it had simply changed occupant. The fall of the patriarchs demonstrated the incredible resilience of the clan model. Power in the Cañada Real does not dissipate, it is transferred. It was a dynastic succession in every sense. The first generation, that of the founders Juan Jose and Adela, established the empire from the 90s. They created the innovative 24/7 supermarket model and began the fortification of their sales points until their fall in the October 2011 operation. The vacuum was filled almost instantly by Juan Jose's own brother, Francisco Hernandez, alias Kiko, who founded his own branch, Los Kikos. Heirs to the same criminal know-how, they continued the business from 2011 to 2020, perfecting the security of the bunkers until they were dismantled in Operation Maíz. But the dynasty did not end there. A third generation was already prepared. Ricardo H. El Bola, a relative of the founders, took over around 2020. He learned from the previous falls, creating a 3-level business structure and managing the business remotely from outside the Cañada. His innovation was the 7 armored door bunker, the ultimate expression of the clan's war against the police. But even he fell in Operation Kaiser in 2025. It became evident that the security forces were not facing a single organization, but a dynastic system, a crime oligopoly controlled by a handful of families who took turns in power. Each successful police strike did not destroy the system. It simply caused a reorganization of power within the same family elite. The fight against drugs in the Cañada Real had become an endless cat-and-mouse game, a cycle of arrests and successions that seemed to have no end. The story brings us back to the beginning, to Operation Kaiser and the fall of Ricardo H. El Bola. He represents the culmination of the clan's evolution. He is the 3rd generation, smarter, more businesslike, and more aware of his ancestors' mistakes. El Bola professionalized the clan's structure, establishing a 3-level hierarchy that isolated him at the top. He learned from the fall of his uncles, who were arrested at their workplace. That's why he ran his empire from the safety of a villa in Rivas, far from the epicenter of risk. He tried to adopt the model of a crime CEO, a manager who delegates high-risk operations to his most trusted lieutenants. His bunker, with its 7 armored doors, was the testament to decades of accumulated knowledge in the war against the police. But neither distance nor steel could protect him. The police investigation managed to trace the thread connecting him to his empire, and finally reached him. His fall demonstrates a fundamental truth. In a business based on the physical control of a territory and on kinship ties, it is impossible to completely disengage. The clan's greatest strength, its deep roots in the Cañada Real, was also its ultimate weakness. El Bola tried to transcend the territorial clan model, but the nature of his power, inherited and geographically anchored, kept him tied to his origin and made him, ultimately, vulnerable. With El Bola in prison, the question resonates more strongly than ever. What has really changed? After decades of spectacular police operations, after the fall of 3 generations of the same clan, the Cañada Real remains a territory marked by exclusion. Años después de las grandes redadas, miles de sus habitantes, incluyendo cientos de niños, siguen viviendo sin un contrato de luz legal, sumidos en la pobreza energética y el abandono institucional. The drug trade, though battered, persists. The police admit that an oligopoly of gangs exists, simply taking turns in power. Even in 2022, years after the fall of Los Gordos, sales points run by offshoots of this historic clan are still being dismantled. The most precise epitaph for this long war is uttered by a national police inspector, a veteran of this fight. When you arrest a narco, another one quickly takes his place. This sentence is not an expression of cynicism, but a criminological fact. The true legacy of Los Gordos is not their story of violence and wealth. It is the empirical demonstration that a criminal organization can achieve a perfect symbiosis with a socially devastated environment. They showed that as long as society allows the existence of sacrifice zones, like the Cañada Real, organized crime will not be an anomaly, but an inevitable form of alternative government and a perverse economic engine. The incredible end of the Los Gordos clan is, ultimately, a media illusion, a convenient narrative consumed on the nightly news. The scene is always the same, a ritual perfectly choreographed for the cameras. The dawn is broken by the hum of a national police helicopter hovering over the tin roofs of the Cañada Real. Below, a convoy of armored vans from the police intervention unit blocks the dirt roads. Journalists in oversized vests film agents from the Special Operations Group, battering ram in hand, breaking down the door of a brick bunker with rehearsed violence. It's the image of the state reasserting its authority. But it's just that, an image. 24 hours later, when the vans are gone and the dust has settled, the victory is revealed to be a mirage. The drug supermarket hasn't closed. It has simply relocated. 3 doors down, a new group of youth guards the entrance. A new seller deals from a barred window, and the same line of cars with customers from every corner of Madrid waits for its turn. The story of the Hernandez motos, of Los Gordos, of El Bola, is not a chronicle of the past. It is an urgent warning about the present. The warning is that the Cañada Real is a forgotten kingdom, a black hole on the map of Spain's capital. And that warning isn't understood just by watching the police go in, but by noticing all those who don't dare to. Here, the state is not just the absence of patrols, it's the absence of the mailman who doesn't deliver the mail, of the electric company technician who won't come to fix a meter for fear of being assaulted, of the garbage truck that doesn't complete its route. In that vacuum of services, of law, and of presence, the clan was not just a criminal group, it was a substitute government. It imposed an order, its order. It resolved disputes, offered work, the only possible work for many, and provided a power structure. They were the only recognizable law, the only service provider in a territory abandoned by the social contract. Therefore, the true end of this saga will not come with the next police operation, no matter how grand. It will not be written with battering rams or arrests. A mother from the doorway of her substandard home watches the parade of police vehicles. She sees the cameras, hears the shouts, and then, when silence returns, she goes back into a house where the light flickers, illegally hooked to a precarious power line, and running water is an intermittent luxury. As she prepares dinner for her children, her thought is a dull echo that resonates throughout Sector 6. What good is it for them to take one away if my children see this every day? They grow up knowing that the path to school is a muddy labyrinth, and the only luxury car they see parked at the door is the drug dealer's. What future am I offering them? The one of honest misery or criminal prosperity? The solution is not urban plans on paper. It's that this mother can turn on the light with the certainty that it won't go out, that she can open the tap, and that her children can walk to school without having to dodge drug addicts. The end will come the day the Cañada Real ceases to be a forgotten kingdom and is integrated with all its rights and duties into the city that surrounds and ignores it. Until that day comes, the throne of drug trafficking in Madrid may change occupants, but it will never remain empty, because the throne is not a kingpin's chair. It's an entire infrastructure. It's the network of teenage runners who watch every access point for 50 euros a day. It's the bunker apartments with their steel doors designed to withstand sieges. It's the contacts in law firms for money laundering. It's the shadow economy that fuels it all. The police operation arrests the royal family, but leaves the castle intact. The Hydra then will continue to regenerate its heads. And the Hydra is not simply a new clan replacing the old one. The Hydra is the ecosystem itself. The Cañada, as an isolated and dysfunctional entity, is a body biologically designed to generate these monsters. Every head that is cut off is a distraction, because the problem isn't the head. It's the body of exclusion and marginality, a fertile body from which they do not and will not stop sprouting.